Hi, my name is Pradeepan Jeevanohar Sivaratnam, but you can call me Pradeepan for short.
And my name is Amrita, and we're
the
Jeevas! We planted Kalos Church in downtown Bellevue in 2017.
Well, Kalos Church means beautiful in poorly pronounced Greek.
Yeah.
And so our mission is to make known the beauty of Jesus. We know a lot of people have seen misrepresentations of faith. But I've learned along my journey of coming from a Hindu family, don't judge religions or worldviews by misrepresentations, but their ideals. And when you look at the ideal of Jesus, what he said, what he did is actually quite beautiful. And we haven't really met a lot of non-believers or unchurched people that have a problem with Jesus. And so that's why Kalos, which means beautiful in Greek, we live in Bellevue, so we're a beautiful church in a beautiful place. And we just want to point to a beautiful God, Jesus Christ, who saved our souls, who's still saving people in our community. And yeah, that's our mission. That's what we get up and we try to do. And it's amazing to see people look and behold the beauty of Jesus. My family's from a small island called Sri Lanka, and in the 80s they lived through basically just a humanitarian crisis, war, civil war, genocide, some people would call it, and living in the midst of war with people dying all around my family, they were able to basically escape under political asylum as refugees. They didn't speak English very well. They were practicing Hindus at the time, couldn't find a temple to worship at, had lost all of their community, and it got so depressing, mixed in with the trauma of war, that they decided that they would end their lives as a family. This was before I was born. My mom, my dad, and sister. A pastor actually stopped my dad in downtown Minneapolis and said, "What's going on? Your body language seems a little off." My dad shared the plan, and then the pastor said, "You don't have to do that." So they brought our family in and heard the gospel, shared Christian, biblical hospitality with my family, and to God be the glory, they went from wanting to end their lives to feeling an optimism through the gospel of Jesus Christ to creating a new life. And so that really put a real passion for me to church plant and kind of pass on the love of Jesus that I inherited. My whole existence is because of a pastor loving people.
I was actually born in the nation of India, and on the first day of my birth, just a few hours after I'd been born, I was abandoned and left at the doorstep of a stranger's home. And thankfully, this stranger was a Christian missionary who had been there for a while, and she took me in, and she ended up taking in a lot of different orphans during that time. And when I was almost 4 years old, I was adopted by a wonderful Christian family from the Midwest in Kansas, right in the middle, and they really believed in the scriptures that talk about God sets the lonely in families. But I really have a passion to give back what I've received. I truly believe that God wanted and called me to here so I could preach the gospel and share the word of Jesus with people. And you know, being the church, my parents were the church outside of the four walls of the building, and they represented that. And so I really am passionate as well about God's call in my life to do that. The journey of us starting to church plant actually started with a pretty devastating loss in our lives. We decided we wanted to start a family, and we got pregnant for the very first time, and we lost our first baby to miscarriage. And it was the first time. We were so excited. It was just pretty devastating for us. So we just began to seek God on a lot of different levels. We knew we didn't want to be in Michigan forever. We began to seek Him, and after fasting and praying and searching and talking with leaders and pastors, we really felt like God wanted us to church plant. And this was just really crazy. What we felt was God was saying, you know, I know you're trying to start your physical family. I want you to start a spiritual family. And God started to speak to us about just the word beauty and beautiful. And we began to hear the phrase, plant a beautiful church in a beautiful place. We didn't quite know what God was up to. We didn't know what He was doing and where we should go. And so we began to fast and pray.
And in the middle of the night, I have a dream. I feel like the Lord says, plant this church in a place called Bellevue. But the problem was we didn't know what a Bellevue was. So I leaned over to Amrita and I go, I feel like the Lord spoke. And she said, let's do something very spiritual. Let's Google map it. And so we looked up Bellevue on Google and lo and behold, it was here in Seattle. Thing is, we didn't know anybody in Seattle. We had no network in Seattle. And so, but we just felt like we're gonna follow God. So we move here, we don't know anybody. So we're like just trying to meet people. And so our first meeting for our interest party, we followed the ARC playbook for how to launch a church. Our first meeting was 3 people. Our second meeting, 67% increase, revival. 5 people showed up to it. And we just remember thinking church planting is hard. And to be honest, we in our early days of youth and young adults ministry thought, oh, we know ministry, we can church plant. This is not gonna be a difficult thing. We know how to do services and reach people. But the fact is, we needed ARC to help us plant because when we got here, we just couldn't get off the ground. All the strategies from Midwest ministry didn't work. And so we had a whole community to lean in, to brainstorm with. And we just had a prayer system around us. And so we had 5 people. We reinvented our playbook and we had 67 people show up to our next interest party and 34 people decided to help us church plant. And so we had a launch team all of a sudden in Seattle. So we do the ARC large launch. We have 234 people at our first service in a comedy club. It's amazing, it's revival, God's moving. And then we finally break 500 for the very first time. This is in downtown Bellevue. We're so excited, and then a pandemic hits. And we go online for 58 weeks. People are moving out of the state, people are mad at us because we're not left politically enough, we're not right politically enough, and we're just like, what's happening to our church? And those who are staying, they're not with us, so we're like, who are we even pastoring? What do we do? And so 58 weeks online, digital small groups, digital YouTube sermons. And then we decided to relaunch after 58 weeks, and it felt like we were relaunching a brand new church again. And so we got down to our launch numbers. So we had hit 500 pre-pandemic, and then our first service back was 38 people, which was like our launch team size. And we did these horrible, awkward services that were like hybrid. We're a portable church, so we had to follow all the rules of the hotel. And so we had to like wear gloves and check in everybody. We weren't preaching live. We weren't worshiping live. We were all in the building and watching screens of us preaching and videos of our team leading in musical worship. It was just horrible. I'm so embarrassed of that season. But we had to start somewhere. And then, this is so cool, 2 years later, we have Easter after just grinding through these awkward services, and we break 600 for the first time as a church plant. And this is where God gets all the glory. We had 38 salvations on that Sunday morning, the same amount as relaunching. And so, building back after the pandemic, it felt like launching again. To be honest, I didn't know if I had it in me. You didn't really know if we could do this again. Personally, our family was just going through a lot of trauma with our kids going through some mental health concerns. Our son was diagnosed with autism. Our daughter went through some scares. She's okay, but to be honest, during that time, I went through like an existential crisis. I remember talking to the board and to my wife and to our family saying, I don't know if I can be a pastor anymore. I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this, but to the credit of this church support system, co-pastoring together, we just said, all right, we're gonna get professional therapy. So even right now, we go to therapy twice a week. And with that strength, by the grace of God, through prayer, just staying in the game, our church is now, it's amazing to say it, we're stronger now than we've ever been. I actually like our church now on the other side of the pandemic. I know that's not the case for a lot of people. I mean, we thought we were gonna go down a lot, that we'd close our doors forever. But we're here, and we're excited to make known the beauty of Jesus for years to come.
Well, when we started Kalos Church, actually before we started, we just really felt like God called us to co-pastor this church together. We really felt like God wanted us from day one to co-pastor. So one of the first things Kalos actually did, and I have Christian education and all of these things, is we actually ordained me as a pastor. One of the first things that we did as a church with our board of directors. And it was just a really beautiful thing to be able to come together and realize that we're gonna pastor this church together. And we've seen a lot of people, especially in this area, really take to that and really welcome what it means to have a mother and a father of a church, and really love coming to hear the perspective and representation of women and men at church. It's been really interesting to figure out what our roles have been. To be really honest, we continue to do that, but we have different strengths and different weaknesses. Obviously, we do a lot of stuff together. We lead our team together. We share the vision together, a lot of strategy, things like that. We have to make sure that on date nights, we're not just talking about church all the time, but it's just been a really beautiful part of our journey.
You know, co-pastoring as a church planting couple is one of the hidden secret sauces of Kalos Church.
Yeah.
It's been a strength, it's been a support system that's just built in. You know, we don't have to worry about preaching every week, and we can work not just in the church, but on the church.
Yeah.
Because we have each other. And so Pastor Amrita is not just like a token pastor. She has authority, she preaches from the pulpit, and the church looks at her as a pastor. And what has happened is powerful, because if you come to a Sunday morning service, and we've asked people, what has your experience been, especially when we have guest pastors come in, they say, this is a church filled with spirit-filled women leaders. And we're like, that's the best compliment ever, because if we're gonna reach the world, we need to empower half the church. And we've had, you know, a lot of women who have billion-dollar budgets working for corporations right here in the Seattle region, and they say, why can I manage $1 billion budget, but I can't give announcements at church? Why can I have a whole team over here, but I can't lead at my own church, and I'm passionate about the gospel? And so having Amrita be not just a symbolic pastor, but having authority, having a platform and a pulpit has set women free. They're like, my goodness, I can use my gifts to serve the Lord. I don't have to feel guilty for wanting to share the gospel, and I have to just go quietly into the night. And I just think it's so incredible. And so I would say that's one of the best things you could ever do. In fact, one of the reasons we chose to plant with the Ark is because on their website it says, we're planting couples with a dream to plant a church.
Yeah.
And we're like, that's it.
Yeah.
They want to plant us as a couple.
Yes.
And yeah, we have to go through the Ark. It's been a crazy journey, and as we look to the future, we're really excited. You know, in our church since June, we've experienced 108 salvations. Like we're saying, this is the most unchurched region in all of America. And it's not just conversion, but we are placing people into discipleship groups. So right now we have about 260 people in Alpha small groups that are meeting throughout the region. And it's cool. They're learning about the basics of faith, theology, what Jesus is all about. They're learning about atonement and what it means to be spirit-filled. And so we're excited to not just make converts, but disciples, and make disciples who can disciple other people. And we have these people placed into groups. And the exciting thing about this is as we've started these groups, we actually launched a youth ministry for the first time 2 weeks ago. And it is the first event we actually had in our brand new building. And so we got a building here in Bellevue, which seems like a miracle. I mean, the real estate is so expensive here, but we have a building where we can have services, programs for our youth, where we can pray, where we can host people. And so right now we're working with the city to get it in the right zoning process, and but we're already praying in it. We're already seeing people made into disciples of Jesus Christ. So as we look for the future, we're just excited to see a church that's completely loyal to Jesus, a church that's a refuge from all of the casualties of our culture. We're excited to see a place where we're empowering more spirit-filled women, that we continue to be a diverse church that is loyal under the banner of Jesus Christ. And as we move forward, we are excited to see more people baptized, more people made into disciples, more people get healed, set free, know God, and I think it's coming, and we're gonna see something happen in Seattle. We've been labeled as people who have carried the Seattle freeze. It's hard to see churches thrive here. It's hard to make friends, but the fire of God is thawing the Seattle freeze, and we're seeing it happen, and I think we'll continue to see it happen. If you're thinking about church planting, first of all, we want to say, please do it. We need church planters. There's so many people that need Jesus. Like, I literally would not be here today if it were not for church planters giving up their lives, at a cost to themselves to preach the gospel, to take new ground. So if you're thinking about church planting and you can do it while following the will of God, please do it. And the second thing I want to say is that church planting is awesome. It's so fun, it's so satisfying, yet it's difficult, but all fun, satisfying things are difficult. Right. I mean, I don't want to do something that's just easy all the time. The challenge of church planting, where you're like, God, if you don't show up, I'm screwed. That's faith. And we get to partner with God. Yes, Jesus does the heavy lifting of church planting, but we get to partner with God to see his people restored. What a privilege. And so church planting is hard, and you're gonna hear a lot of war stories. I mean, I've gone through them. I'm in therapy. I'm in a lot of counseling twice a week. And I'm still saying I love church planting. Yeah. I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad we're part of this crazy tribe of church planters who are saying, let's give up our family, like comforts. Yeah. Let's go to unknown lands and partner with God to transform a region. I mean, what a great life.